Good evening. If your nocturnal viewing habits have become rather mundane, thou art on the verge of uncovering an arcane secret that shall alter thy nights forever. Prepare thyself for an extraordinary odyssey. Welcome to Channel KOK, where the ordinary doth become extraordinary. Channel KOK is not merely a place to watch films, it is an experience that transcendeth the screen. It is a rogue pirate TV station, sailing through the airwaves like a spectral galleon, a sanctuary for cinephiles and seekers of the soul alike, offering a haven for the curious mind. Embark on a journey through alchemical symbols, ancient archetypes and the hero's quest, discovering hidden verities, all nestled within the misty forest paths and gothic castles of our enchanted domain, awaiting thy exploration. Guided by King and the Branch, we unravel the cosmic script, revealing the mysteries of the universe, revealing God as the ultimate director, Polaris as his celestial film reel, and angels as his divine crew. Fill up thy cup of wisdom with us as we delve into the unknown, as we explore the esoteric and the mystical, uncovering secrets long forgotten. Transforming every movie into a modern myth, a tale for the ages. Remember, transformation is but a channel away. Just a click can change thy perspective. This is Channel KOK TV to ponder, where every broadcast is a portal to another world.
Welcome back to the King of Brain Show on Channel KOK. As we delve into all kinds of topics from film to pop culture, I'm your host, King, with my co-host, Branch. I guess you can call me Coast because we always play with K's here, so why not? But I'm King. I'm here with the Branch, and we're just going to get right into our topics today on the King of Branch. So we're going to start off with the Branch's segment, of course, and then head into the King's segment and talk about Lilo and Stitch. But first, we have Dark MAGA with the Branch. How's it going, Branch?
Hey, dude. Trying to share the screen, so give me just a moment here to get that. I think whenever is it working? Oh, hold on.
Oh,
all right,
there it
should
is.
Be doing it now.
Yeah, I see it now. This.
Yeah, cool.
Whoa.
It's like tiled it or something. But anyway, I think you had it, didn't you?
Yeah. For a moment there, yes.
Just let me know when it's showing.
There we go. There it's back.
By the way, that intro really was pretty cool. I really enjoyed the comparison of Polaris to the film reel. That was clever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've a lot of times passed since our last episode, and so we'll be filling in some gaps here with some news stories. So some of these will kind of fall under the category of a Dark MAGA segment. However, some of them are simply geopolitical updates and things of that nature. So wanted to start off with the recent new Pope thing. So we did lose a Pope with Francis, and mind you that this is the Roman Catholic Pope. It doesn't represent the Orthodox Church, but after his passing, a new Pope was elected, I guess, by the conclave. And so in the interim between that time of the passing and the election, Trump released some photos on his social media. And if you want to, can you show those maybe just whenever when you can?
Yeah, I have this one, which is a memed version.
Now, to just be clear, the White House only shared the top one.
Yeah.
As an AI generated image. I think the bottom one you said was dude on Twitter. Shout out to America or whatever.
Yeah, Hidden America did it.
Hidden
Yeah,
America.
it's kind of dark here, but yeah, it's
like a Dark Pope version of it.
Yeah, it's like a Dark Pope. It's like
but
Dark
anyway,
MAGA Pope.
but and then there's the other with the orange smoke.
Yeah.
So you know, so to get back to the story then. So the headline reads, "They can't take a joke. Days after Trump defends viral AI Pope photo, Pope Leo is chosen." Well, Leo's an interesting name because although there is some historical context, we here at Channel KOK always see things through that astrological type lens, right? So I can't help but think the King of Heaven kind of vibes.
Lion of Judah kind of.
Yeah, all that stuff, Mufasa, so on and so forth. So can you share the one last image that relates to this story, and then I'll just continue with the article.
Yeah.
And so this is an oldie but a goodie, and we featured this before, I think. So if you take a close look, you can notice that there's an image of Trump there on the second card, which is also tapped, and it shows him seated on North America, which includes Canada in this case. So mind you, this was in 2017. So his throne sits on Greenland, Canada, and the United States. And he's holding the Globus Cruciger and the scepter, rod of authority. And so it's kind of funny to see what all has transpired since then. I mean, this was pre-pandemic and so on and so forth. So, and then, you see the Wheel of Fortune down there with recognizable heads of state, changing on the wheel with their associated flags. So you can even tell who they are,
Yeah, really quick, Brands, if I may kind of weave in here
Certainly.
a moment. I was in a online group chat with a bunch of other people talking about current events and the esoteric side of things, and they was mentioning that raw scepter that the Pope has and what it can mean in the occult meanings and all this. And I pointed out that it also looks like a honey dipper from bees. And I thought it was interesting because not only have we talked about bees on our last video when I was talking about Severance with Ryder Lee and how there's all that bee kind of hive mind kind of symbolism, but also in MK Ultra. But also I noticed that you shared online recently this like bee epidemic. So I think it's no coincidence that there is this kind of bee kind of epidemic thing going on in the world while we have this whole Pope thing going on. So I just wanted to weave that in there really quick.
Yeah, I have a friend that's a beekeeper, and he's speculating on whether or not his hive will collapse this year, and he thinks they'll swarm off and things like that. So there's a lot of theories surrounding it. I mean, personally, I think it's the chemtrails they're spraying in the skies and insecticides that they're using and so on and so forth. People don't understand. They think just spraying it on the sidewalk or whatever is no big deal to keep the weeds out, but just that act of laziness could be responsible for killing on bees. You know what I mean? Because they're highly sensitive, just like amphibians are to toxins in water. Bees are like our canary in the coal mine for environmental toxins, and so they're usually the first thing to go, and that's indicative of high contamination, specifically in the air. So one of the drawbacks of having an industrialized society is that we do embrace chemicals and manufacturing, and those pollutants do get into the air. And I can't remember the details, but I do know that a while back there was some type of lifting of different restrictions, like regarding the EPA with companies. It was either they focus on water or air. You couldn't have both, or well, why can't we have both? But it seems like air is the one that took the hit in favor of water, which is kind of curious. I didn't expect to talk about this, but I'll just mention that the new Klaus Schwab did step down from head of the World Economic Forum, the guy that wants you to eat the bugs, that guy. He stepped down, and Nestle water, they own a lot of water. It's not just chocolate. They took over as the head of the WEF. So the focus on clean water may have not been a coincidence, right? Because after all, you can't really capitalize on air. So water, however, you can. So I guess that's why they chose to pollute the air and not the waters, because they can actually make money on the water. So we might be a little bit ahead of that there, just talking about it. But so anyway, as the article continues here, so it just discusses here how he posted a photo. Of course, the media went wild, and people thought it, typical Trump fashion, right? But when I saw that, it gave me God Emperor vibes from Dune, when you combine government and religion together. And it reminded me also of that economics, 2017 economics cover. And so when you kind of combine those two, you really do get the God Emperor vibes. And that was even a meme of Trump's, like during his 2016 election campaign era. When he was, being associated with meme magic and all that. So this is not really a new thing. And so I think it's funny how sensationalized it was, when in fact this is actually par for the course. And we know how much he likes golf. So I think it's another reason why Trump's able to connect with the younger generations, is because as old as he is, he's still somewhat hip to meme culture or whatever. And so there's this weird relationship he has with memes. And because we know the left struggles to meme, there's even the meme that they can't meme. So it's like he inherently inherited this, meme mantle, if you will. But anyway, I had a few more links here that I'll cover, and I'm going to try to get through the rest of these kind of quick. So this will be more like a news blitz kind of thing here. I do have a link here on the conclave, and it was a relatively short one. So the papal conclave was held on May 7th and 8th of this year of our Lord 2025 to elect the new pope to succeed Francis, who had died on the 21st of April 2025. Now, mind you, J.D. Vance visited Francis the day before he died, so that would have been 420, I guess. So he visits the Pope, and the Pope dies. And then so now we have a new Pope. And so there's also a subtle connection to this Trump as Pope thing, because there's like the rumor or speculation, did he have anything to do with it, because this is also the first American Pope ever. So again, another coincidence? Who knows? So it just makes you wonder, because even though you would think that this should be like a neutral kind of thing, heads of state were trying to curry favor, and Macron from France, for instance, was even trying to, push for his chosen candidate. And so there was some politics involved with the selection of this Pope, at least. I mean, maybe they're all like that, and it's just not as obvious, but this one seemed more obvious, I think. Now, there's a lot of details surrounding this guy, but for the sake of time, we're not going to go into him very deep. But his name, let's see, I just want to make sure I get it right here. Robert Francis Prevost. Sometimes I don't know how to pronounce that sometimes. But anyway, this was the guy that was chosen. And then they actually choose a name, usually the name of a Pope prior. And he chose Leo. Now, Leo is said to have been one of the Leos prior, was said to have created I think the prayer of Saint Michael, or something like that. So a little bit of a historical connection. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff floating around online about this guy. But the main points to raise is that he's the first American Pope. I think he's Peruvian, but also hails from Chicago, which is where Obama has his seat of power. So I even saw a tweet on X about Obama shouting out to this guy. So it's like, well, I don't know if Obama likes this guy. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. But so it'll be interesting to see what role he plays in the Abraham Accords, or any kind of other peace type stuff, because some of the stories we're going to be covering here in a moment, he might get involved with pretty quick, because the Pope normally does kind of intervene sometimes with things like that, right? So that said, one of the conflicts that's been kind of going on here lately, but may have come to an end already, we're not real sure yet, but there's been a long-standing conflict between India and Pakistan over a small part of land called Kashmir, and this, of course, reminds me of that Led Zeppelin song from way back when. But when it, in the song, it talks about when all things will be revealed, right? It seems like we're in that time of revelation now. So I've always kind of kept my eye on this potential conflict rather. Kind of imagining it as probably like a inciting incident, or the rising action or something in a plot, right? It just seemed like it was, all that tension was there, right? And so they started lobbing bombs back and forth apparently for a few days, and quickly came to a ceasefire, so it seems. But I guess we'll have to just monitor this and see what's going to happen. But both sides declared victory actually, so it's kind of a matter of interpretation, I suppose. But if they get peace, then I guess they did both win, right? Because but what should be noted about these two countries is that they both possess nuclear arms. India seems to have a more developed military. However, they did seem to struggle carrying out some of their missions. However, they did provide a news conference about and detailed some of the precision strikes that they made on what they said were, I don't want to use the word, because of the censorship, but there were people that were committing acts of intimidation, let's say, and so they were targeting them, right? So, but that said, the conflict may have come to an end. But again, how this is kind of related to the Pope story is J.D. Vance goes and visits Prime Minister Modi of India. Days later, war breaks out. So, it's like kind of a coincidence at this point that the disaster seems to follow him, right? Is the D in his name stand for disaster? So, quickly switching to another thing here. I got only a few minutes left here, so I'm going to try to get through these quick. This is an emerging story. I'm sure we've not seen the end of this yet, but kind of a reverse on the immigration thing that we've been seeing. And we're now accepting South Afrikaner refugees who are being discriminated against in South Africa. And so that's something I didn't see coming, but I guess it makes sense because Elon Musk is South African, right? So he must be really advocating for these folks. But this is a developing story, so something to just pay attention to. And we'll quickly go to this next story here. Trump's changed his attitude and tone with Israel here lately in terms of their government. However, it seems like he might be siding with the people. So I don't know how true this is, but some of the sentiment is that I would say it's the more left-leaning citizens that are probably siding with Gaza, whereas some of the more right-wing extremist sides.
There's that orange smoke again.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. You're right. How funny. Well, anyway, it's more like the right-leaning side that kind of wants to just wipe them out, right? And so he's kind of gotten involved with this conflict, and he's talking about how he was maybe he kind of I don't think he's necessarily going to do this, but he kind of flirted with the idea of recognizing a Palestinian state or creating a Palestinian state or liberating Gaza. Like, we don't really know what any of this stuff means. I think maybe his intention is to facilitate the removal of those people and maybe put them in Syria or somewhere else. Like, I don't know, whoever will maybe take them, I guess. But you know, we do know that he snubbed Netanyahu. So I don't think that this is necessarily him snubbing the whole country, but he did say that Benjamin Netanyahu and some of his cabinet ministers were very arrogant, and he did not appreciate their attitude, and he felt like they were trying to manipulate him. And so when you really think about that, you know, the Epstein stuff and everything else, and all the other ways they've been manipulating our U.S. Elected officials, etc. I mean, there might be something a lot more that's not being said, you know, and I find it kind of coincidental that all this stuff's kind of happening at the same time. So it makes me wonder if maybe, because there's some rumors that maybe they destroyed all that stuff and that evidence. So I wonder if maybe Trump just had all of it eliminated to remove the leverage on the people or something. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but this was a kind of a curveball I didn't really see coming. But I would imagine this will have something to do with the Abraham Accords here in the near future, because we know how the government feels in Israel, right? They don't want Gaza there, right? So if there's some type of tension there, I'm not so sure a peace treaty is going to work. And so what we saw was, and this is kind of getting us to my next tab, Trump kind of leapfrogged Netanyahu and went to Saudi Arabia. And he's doing a tour. He has met with the new Syrian president. He's meeting now, or has just met with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And so we have a White House article here on the strengthening the strategic partnerships for economic prosperity. So today in Saudi Arabia, President Donald J. Trump announced Saudi Arabia's $600 billion commitment to invest in the United States, building economic ties that will endure for generations to come. The first deals under the announcement strengthen our energy, security, defense, industry, technology, leadership, and access to global infrastructure and critical minerals. There we hear the minerals again. We're talking a lot about minerals lately. There's too much here to really discuss, but you'll see that there's a lot of chiefs of companies involved. When I hear chiefs and this sort of thing, it kind of reminds me of scripture where the chiefs are gathering and plotting and doing their thing, you know, and you know, they're trying to establish peace, right? And you can find a speech here where he's talking about peace and security. And in scripture, we're in 2 Thessalonians, I think it is. We learn that, you know, they cry peace and safety, and then sudden destruction comes upon them, you know. So again, that hearkening back to that tension that I was mentioning, like some of these participants are not willing, and I don't think that the peace will necessarily be a lasting one. So the key here would be to note if they start talking about a 7-year peace treaty or anything like that, that would be big red flags. Because according to the scripture, that peace treaty is interrupted at the midpoint, which is like 3.5 years. So, and you know, his term did just start, and I didn't think that he really had enough time to do all this stuff, but we see how quickly everything's going. So maybe they're also aware of the time, you know, in some sense, because if you look at the timeline with the parable of the fig tree, we got about 70 to 80 years to work with there from the establishment of Israel till today. And earlier this month marked the 77th anniversary of Israel. So we're getting into that 3 years to 80. So it all kind of lines up in a way, you know. Of course, there's all those people that want to say, oh, you can't predict day or the hour or anything like that. Yeah, but we are told to look at the seasons, and we can know the season, right? So I feel like what I'm trying to say is the season is things are ripe, ripening, right?
Yeah.
And the last story is a story on which we won't be covering in detail because this kind of segues into the next segment. But we did discuss network states maybe in the past. I'm not sure, but here it is in the flesh. Well, in the concrete, I should say. So SpaceX has announced that they have turned their South Texas launch site into a city. So kind of like along the lines of the Umbrella Corporation vibe, where Raccoon City was a city created and ran and operated by Umbrella, and all their employees lived there. That's kind of like what we're seeing with these network state things, where they corporations become their own government. And this was definitely a surprise to me. I did not know that this was going to happen because I haven't really been following this topic closely. This was just something that kind of intrigued me. And then all of a sudden, boom. So we might start seeing more of these, like with Amazon and some of these other big companies. But anyway, I wanted to end my segment there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to take this down because to kind of what I wanted to say really quick about your segment before we switch over to the King segment is that my mic muting it there. But yeah, so we're talking about these corporations starting in cities and getting into government domain and everything. That's technically America is America Corp. So there is presidents there, right? Jordan Maxwell with all the law of the sea stuff, right, and all that. So it is, and of course, with the smart city talk and everything. So there is definitely something going on there, which we can do. Get more into in another Dark MAGA kind of technocracy.
You did just remind me, though, just to be a brief comment. Back in the earlier campaign era, like the 2016 era, and during his administration, then he did start this initiative for 10 smart cities across America, and all of the places that we've seen these natural disasters occur, they had like minerals under them, or they had plans for smart cities and things like that. So I think what we're seeing that where they're destroying these cities and then building these smart cities, and it's becoming kind of like that Starbase thing.
Yeah, exactly. And to kind of promote our previous video, again with Ryder Lee, I talked about Severance, and that whole kind of show is like them kind of creating this like underground corporate society, world. So business is creating cities is definitely a theme. But yeah, let's get into the King segment. So we're going to do a little division here and switch over. Welcome back. Wow, that was a quick break. But yeah, we are going to be talking about Lilo and Stitch. Do you have a link up, Branch? Awesome. So yeah, so we'll be talking about Lilo and Stitch. Of course, the live action Disney version is coming out in a couple of weeks at the end of the month. I decided to talk about it because I have a lot of nostalgia for the original, and this is to me one of the last Disney movies to have that symptom of Disney magic. That even when I recently rewatched it, and it wasn't just that nostalgic feeling. I could still feel that Disney magic in it that I felt as a kid when I was watching it, that you don't feel in Disney movies within the last 15 years or so. So I think this was one of the last times Disney really tapped into their mimetic weaving magic when they're crafting these films. So I think it's interesting to kind of we're going to go through and see what is this Disney magic made of for this film. So in the so a little oral history here with this link. Essentially, what this article is about. It's a really long article. We won't fully get into it because it's very hefty. It is an interesting one because it gets into the fact that the reason why one of the reasons why Lilo and Stitch it is what it is because a lot of the corporate suits of Disney kind of left it alone. It was housed in like an extra kind of building off to the side, or they were just animating like mid-budget movies that they wasn't really like the main studio wasn't really focused on. You know, they didn't have all these hands in it. It's not like your Disney princess movies or anything, right? Where there's all these hands in the same trying to work on the same recipe. It was just some prominent Disney people making something kind of off to the side at the beginning, and then it just got bigger and bigger. And now it's a cultural phenomenon, right? And now they're remaking it into a live action version. So it's interesting that it kind of started off as something kind of like a side quest kind of thing, right? And it's grew into something bigger. And I think that's part of its magic, that they let it be, right? And it's corporations don't really let things be now. And to go on off of that, the branding in it was very interesting. Where all the ads, all the commercials wasn't just clips from the movie. It was completely original animations of scenes from famous Disney plays, not plays, musicals. You know, like they're Disney princess musicals and whatnot, and then the scene gets interrupted by Stitch invading the scene. So it was called the Stitch invasion. He was all over the amusement parks and just everything, all the branding. There was like this, they called it the Stitch invasion. Probably one of the most famous ones is a clip of Aladdin on the, and Jasmine on the magic carpet singing their song, and Stitch pulls up in his red spaceship right beside the red carpet and whistles at Jasmine, and Jasmine gets in his spaceship over riding the on the magic carpet with Aladdin. So it's like Stitch still Jasmine from Aladdin, because he had this.
He's got the Riz. Is that what they call it? Does Stitch have the Riz?
Yeah. And so like. And they did that similar thing with this new live action version. They had him intersect with the old scenes from all the other live action Disney films. So they're kind of double dipping with the same memetics there. And
was that on the red carpet, you said?
Yeah, just
the red carpet's usually like a bloodline kind of thing too, so there might be more to it there.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many stories do we have of aliens mating with human women or whatever? It's kind of a funny tangent, but
exactly. You're right on it, man. To go into the next tab there, I think our next one is over 9/11. So Stitch technically caused 9/11, in a way. So and what I mean by that is in the original film, which was in production before 9/11 happened, because the animation takes a while. The ending of the movie where Stitch is trying to rescue Lilo from Gantu. In the first version of it, he steals a airplane a commercial airplane, and he is chasing to get Lilo back, and he crashes into a bunch of buildings. And then 9/11 happens. They were worried that it's too close to home, so they use the same animation, but they reskin it to be an alien spaceship he's driving, and a big red one, which plays into his obsession with the color red and red spaceships. But also they changed the buildings to mountains, and the mountains are still, they really just kind of reskinned it. It's kind of still in the same formation of the buildings, but then they kind of hit the mountains instead of the buildings, which makes sense because the whole point of Stitch is like he's created to be the embodiment of destruction and chaos. So he wants to go. He's created to go to a big city and destroy cities and destroy civilizations. And so to have him on an island that kind of isolates him, that's kind of part of what the dynamic of the story. So it kind of worked in their favor to change the buildings to mountains, because it changed kind of the tone of the film.
Well,
right?
And a point to make too is the word play here. So obviously we know that 9/11 was an inside job, of course, but the aliens hijacked it, right? Another word for immigrants, right, is that. So I feel like they were kind of seeding the idea there of aliens hijacking a plane, which is exactly what happened, right? Because I highlighted the point here that although it was released after, the animation had been completed before.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't the first time Lilo and Stitch has been changed. When they brought Lilo and Stitch to Disney Plus, they reanimated the scene where Lilo and her older sister Nani is playing hide and seek, and Lilo hides in a dryer because they was afraid that kids will be climbing in dryers. So they changed it to a cabinet, and when they put it on Disney Plus. So that's
Now
another
that's some thoughtful editing, at least. Yeah, I mean, I can vibe with that one.
Yeah, that is thoughtful, but that's another example of make sure you own something in physical media, because they can change it at any time, right?
Word.
Yeah. Next here we have of course the Elvis connection, because Lilo, she's seen as kind of, I guess you can say, in a way she's that quirky, a bit of a young version of a manic pixie dream girl, or even what are they called, moon children, right? She's different from all the other kids her age, and one of the ways they show that is through her obsession with Elvis Presley. And those Elvis songs playing throughout the film. When she's trying to teach Stitch to become more human, she uses the idyllic role model of Elvis. She wants him to be more like Elvis. They sing Elvis. They even go to a bench in the film that they say that's where Elvis would visit when he went to Hawaii, and they even she kind of like does this kind of prayer to the spirit of Elvis, in a way. And Elvis has a big connection in real life with Hawaii, of course, which we'll be getting into. And I don't know if you want to scroll down here. I think we have some highlights of various Elvis conspiracies. So of course, Elvis died on the toilet, so that's like throne symbolism, right? He died on the throne. Those are those conspiracies that he didn't die, but he faked his death.
And also the sitting on the toilet thing. There's a demon called Belphegor. I think he's depicted as that too.
Yeah. there was all those videos of Elvis where his like face glitches, right, or like melts or something, like he's something's going on there. And then of course, I believe, is there any other conspiracies on that list I'm missing, Branch, that you see?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure because I'm not familiar with a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of them here.
Yeah.
But what came to mind was be sure to mention the Memephise connection because after all, we use that in the title. I didn't know when that would be appropriate.
Yeah. Of course, he, obviously Graceland. Maybe if you want to go to the next link, then I believe this plays into the next link of Elvis connections with Disney. They hosted, Graceland is in Memphis, of course. They hosted a premiere of Lilo and Stitch at Graceland.
I did not know that.
Yeah, when the movie came out, if you wanted to scroll down, there's a little bit about that in the article, possibly.
Just wanted to point out how many digits he has. So it looks like he's a 4-digited creature, right?
Yes.
Where did you want me to go exactly?
On
the page.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. He got Elvis's the Elvis Foundation. They don't like giving his copyright of Elvis's persona out to people and his music. It's really hard to have Elvis's music in films because they don't. Because the Elvis Presley Foundation doesn't like giving it out copyright, but they gave it to Disney because of their relationship with Disney.
Well, and I found it curious too how you said this was who she considered the archetypal man or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would necessarily hold true today because, tastes have changed, I'm sure. But what made him that, right? And he was referred to as the king. And so I think there is a lot of archetypal energy there.
Yeah.
And it's curious to me how she was instructing him how to emulate that, suggesting that like this was her version of the ideal masculine king or whatever, emperor.
Exactly. Yeah, he's the the American David, the universal, the American version of the universal man. He was what Trump was at for his time in a way, even though he was never really a politician of sorts. He did fight in war, but yeah, I mean it's so interesting, and even in the Stephanie Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, made a movie recently called I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was a story of Elvis Presley from his wife's perspective, based on his wife's autobiography, and she the actor that she hired to play Elvis in the film, he was so young that the first time he ever heard of Elvis was because of this Lilo and Stitch movie. So, and that was the headlines everywhere. It was like Elvis actor, first time hearing about Elvis was because of the Lilo and Stitch movie. So it was like they was trying to get future generations to remember him, even though they wasn't around for his impressions.
Yeah, remember the king, right? And then I didn't know exactly how you were going to transition into the Hawaii stuff, but this right here seems relevant. If you want to read that or talk about
if you want to read it really quick.
The other reason that it made sense for the directors to feature the king of rock and roll in their movie set in Hawaii was to pay homage to some of Elvis's most iconic movies and performances ever. He made 3 movies set in Hawaii: Paradise, Hawaiian Style, Girls, 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 and Blue Hawaii. He performed 2 major concerts in the Aloha State as well, the USS Arizona benefit in 1961 and Aloha from Hawaii in 1973. Aloha from Hawaii was a live broadcast concert and was NBC's highest rated program of the year, which, again, another similarity to Trump. They hate him, but they love the ratings.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, so which brings us to our next link, which is all about the America's obsession with Hawaiian culture, especially in the 1950s. After Hawaiian became the 50th state, they wanted people to, of course, travel there and everything. So you had this whole tiki culture. So they kind of gave this idea that, like, if you work enough, if the American white picket fence, American dream kind of suburban dad works enough at his office job, he can get vacation time so he can fly his family to Hawaii. You got the Brady Bunch, going to Hawaii on their vacation special and so on and so forth. So this whole like tiki culture and like tiki barbecues that you could get tiki decorations at home and do your backyard barbecues in Hawaiian style and luau's, like it, they really sold it. And that's kind of what the Lilo and Stitch movie kind of emulates with the art style. It's that kind of like 1950s kind of Hawaiian watercolor painting mixed with like a light kind of like pin up kind of aesthetic, right?
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing I didn't know till just now reading the article. It's talking about how tourism began in earnest, but was turbocharged with the nearly simultaneous introduction of jet aircraft, which are featured heavily in the film. You just were talking about the plane flying into the buildings or whatever. And here it's talking about that's what drove the Hawaiian tiki culture and the ability to go to vacations was the creation of this jet aircraft. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, of course, the next thing we can talk about, I'll remove our links here for a second so we can talk about it, is in the film, what's the meaning behind the name Lilo and Stitch? So Stitch is when he was first created by Jumba, the mad scientist alien. He only referred to him as Experiment 626 because he was the 626th experiment that he did. I don't have the screenshot, but in the beginning of the film, he presents him in like a capsule, very much like homunculus, right? So we have the like mad scientists, like again, 1950s sci-fi fantasy films, which they do watch 1950s movies in Lilo and Stitch because that's another thing Lilo's obsessed with is 1950s sci-fi and creature features. So like the whole like 1950 culture is still prevalent in the film, but even in the aliens, it's kind of influenced in their design and in the alien culture. So you have Jumbo creating Experiment 626, and then when Stitch escapes to capturing and crash lands in Hawaii, Lilo and takes him in, adopts him, renames him Stitch, and so she's kind of like that. Like again, like that, like kind of starseed moonchild kind of, where she can understand Stitch and everything, because he does it kind of, he speaks his own kind of language, and so when he crash lands, Lilo is actually praying to God to send her an angel because she's lonely, and she sees his crash landing ship as a shooting star, and she thinks it's a shooting star. So she prays to his crashing ship to send her an angel. so she's not lonely.
That's pretty crazy. I did not know that. That's
and then,
wild.
And here's the scene. She goes, "I need someone to be my friend. Maybe send me an angel." And she says, "The nicest angel you have." She's like, "Send me the nicest angel in heaven." And it cuts to him crash landing, and he's on the mountain, like maniacally laughing, like he's like, he's like because he's created to be like a war machine. Like he's super cute and fluffy, but he is created to destroy everything in his path.
That reminds me of the Dragon Ball Z thing where Goku was sent to destroy Earth, but hits his head and forgets that he's like a Super Saiyan and ends up becoming domesticated by like a kind man.
yeah, Lilo. And so Lilo finds him. She adopts him as her quote dog. And then she renames him Stitch, which Lilo means lost. And so the name of the film is literally Lost and Stitch, as in lost and get stitched back together. Which the whole idea of the film is family. Like Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. And it's because, Lilo and her older sister Nani's parents died in a car accident before the film picks up. And Lilo's older sister, who's like 19 in the film, has to become the parent. And they even have a fight at the beginning of the film where she's like, "You're much better of a sister than you are a mom." And she's like, "I know I'm not doing such a good job right now." And even in the film, Cobra Bubbles, who is a social worker, he has tattoos, he's very muscular, so it's kind of odd that he's their social worker, is like, "Hey, like, I'm here to check up on Lilo. You guys aren't doing so good. If anything happens, I'm going to have to take Lilo away. I know it's really sad deal, but like, you guys got to try to be doing even better than what, like, do better, essentially." And it's odd that this is their social worker, and it's hinted at they understand that it's odd, and it's revealed at the end of the film that it's because he's a retired CIA agent who worked during Roswell, and so he knows aliens. So he ends up helping Lilo and Nani out at the end of the film to get Stitch to stay with them and not get sent back to be destroyed. And I think they want to send him in into a black hole or something. I don't know. I forget exactly what the aliens kind of decide. But then they see Stitch has been rehabilitated at the end of the film. So they let him stay with Lilo. And now Lilo and Nani are under the protection of the Galactic Federation. That reminds me, the aliens in all the films, in the films, are very aquatic to fit with the water theme. Even the villain, Gaintu, is a giant alien shark with feet and hands. So I think that's a wink at this idea of like the biblical earth and like cosmic egg, and the waters of heaven, having the aliens look like fish. Like even the leader of
Marine Kingdom.
Yeah, even the leader of the Galactic Federation is a giant alien squid. So it's like, I think it's definitely a wink and nods to that sort of thing, right? But yeah, going back really quick to the name thing, one of the songs, there was original Hawaiian songs throughout the film on top of the Elvis songs. And one of the main songs, it's called like Mili no Lilo. I forget exactly how you pronounce it, but it's essentially Hawaiian for the Ballad of the Lost Children. And of course, it's a reference to her being lost without her family, and them having to stitch together a blended family of aliens and humans. But it can also be a reference to, again, since Leo is kind of like a indigo children kind of thing. It could be a reference to being ferried away and children getting abducted and disappearing into the mountains and the forest, like since Stitch,
like a changeling type thing.
Yeah, a changeling type thing. especially since Stitch originally crash lands on a mountain, which gets us to this Hellier connection. So we got one more link here.
Actually, I think you got two, but
yeah, okay. In the documentary series Hellier, when Greg and Dana Newkirk investigated the Hellier goblins, the Inner Earth goblins in Hellier, Kentucky, they look like they was described as grays coming out of the mines and the mountains and the caves. But it's really hard to tell in that image, but they have these ears that come out that have grooves in them that look just like Stitch's ears. And when I was watching this, I go, that's just Stitch, because Stitch has these very, the really big ears with the grooves in them. So I thought that was interesting, because since he crash lands on a mountain.
I can see what you're saying. I have the picture up there, and I notice also he doesn't have a nose, this creature here, unless it's somewhere else.
And
but
Stitch
it
does have that flat nose, yeah. But yeah, what's the next link? I forget what it is. Oh yeah, the ride. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to mention here is on top of the Lilo and Stitch craze, they reskinned Disney's first horror ride. So Disney had their first horror ride, which was a 5D interactive ride called Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, where you role played as guards in the alien prison, and this alien creature animatronic would escape and crawl around you and everything. And it was their first horror ride. It got shut down because I guess it was too scary. And then they would use the same animatronic in the same place and reskin it to be Stitch's Great Escape, where you are a guard, and well, Stitch is in his homunculus jar prison, and he escapes and he crawls around you and everything. And I actually went on that ride, the Stitch version of the ride, when I was younger, and it was still pretty creepy of ride, even with the reskin Stitch animatronic. It's still a really creepy ride to be in pitch darkness, and these animatronics are crawling around you and spraying you with water, and they're spraying smells into the room and everything. So Stitch has a really big craze. Let me see what here. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, they franchised it out. So you also have, Lilo and Stitch 2, which was a direct-to-TV movie called Stitch Has a Glitch. And it was all about Stitch not being complete, and he keeps on glitching out. And so he almost dies, and then Lilo has this hula competition that she's trying to be just like her mom. So that it's kind of like they're kind of recreating these creature features. It's very kind of reminds me of the creature from the Black Lagoon,
which is another aquatic creature, yeah. Perhaps without a nose.
Yeah,
I'm not
without
sure
a
if
nose.
he has a nose or not.
Yeah.
Well, okay. It's because they have gills, dude. They don't need a nose. Duh.
Yeah, duh. Yeah, but to finish up here, so they also had Lilo and Stitch, the series, where they turned into Pokemon, where Lilo and Stitch had to find all his other 600. He called them cousins because in Hawaiian culture, they say cousin a lot, but all the other experiments before him. So it's kind of like Pokemon, where they had to catch them all, but they rehabilitated every single one and found their place in the world and everything. And then that's where you get you had they had yin and yang aliens. They had Reuben, which was just there was the alien creation before Stitch, but he was suffer from gluttony, so he can never be as strong as Stitch because he just couldn't stop eating. The alien that Jumbo tried to make after Stitch, when he was forced to make it by the villain to create an anti-Stitch, like evil Stitch, Leroy. He was kind of like the Antichrist. You had Angel. He was a pink girl Stitch. Who was a siren who could like hypnotize other alien experiments with her singing. So yeah, you had all these kind of different aliens going
Doesn't
around.
that one actually doesn't Stitch and that one get together or have some type of relationship or interaction?
Yeah, he kind of he fantasizes about her. They're not like officially a couple, but like he does find her attractive. But he sees that she's kind of toxic because she
But
can get him to do.
Did she
things-
say she's Angel though?
Yeah, that's what her name is Angel.
I think it's interesting because you were talking about the prayer earlier, how she was asking for an angel and got Stitch, but yet there actually was another one named Angel.
Yeah.
So that's a weird coincidence.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about here is Disney had a crossover with every animated series they had at the time and the Lilo and Stitch show, where Stitch would show up into all the different animated TV series that the Disney Channel had. And so, in a way, Stitch connects all the Disney animated movies and all the Disney animated shows all in the same universe. So Stitch kind of like, almost like, we talk about like Spider-Verse and Spider-Man. He's kind of like Disney's version of that in a way.
Stitching them all together in a way.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, that's all for this episode, guys. Of course, there's much more to talk about with all these topics. But that's all we have time for this one. Thanks, Branch, for coming on and talking with me. I'm always excited and enjoy you talking about the Dark MAGA element of it all.
And I'll just end with a couple thoughts. First of all, the prayer with the falling star reminded me of our previous episodes. I don't remember when or where we did it, but something about the wishing star of Disney. Maybe we've discussed that around Pinocchio era or whatever. But I would just end by saying, like, some of the Dark MAGA stuff gives me an anxiety, and it's been kind of difficult to make myself do it. Because it just generates some anxiety, but I also feel the duty in a sense to kind of point out things, because I don't want to have blood on my hands, right? If I didn't talk about it or make people aware. So I just wanted to mention that. But Chris, you have any thoughts on that?
Not right now. I still.
We had a Stoic thing earlier.
Oh yeah. I mean, say the Stoics would say things like, "Not to comfort is a fate worse than death for a man. To not, to never face adversity and to never be tested and trialed. To not make something of yourself."
Yeah, exactly, and that's why, rather than shirk away from it and not talk about it, I rather choose to confront it. So. Courage is doing something even when you're afraid, or in this case, anxious, right? So just wanted to share that I'll try to do these things more regularly, but that's kind of why I've been reluctant, I guess. Psychologically, maybe.
It would take us to overthrow the Panopticon.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and Amor Fati. See you guys next time.